excited to have you guys here and get into this episode. So first we're going to start off with the beginning, where we see that the crafter elf is becoming more and more undone, more kind of losing it, more so focused in this world that he's losing touch with the things around him. And we see this in the most obvious way of the woman that he's always working with. He can't recall her name. But as soon as she leaves, just a few seconds later, he can recall her name. So we're starting to be, I'm starting to be more and more worried about about this guy, and that this kind of descent into madness thing happening. Like, he's really going to be losing control. This is where Anatar's really getting in full control before anybody else realizes it, even of the city itself. And we see him walk up to this, I guess, like a bridge, but not a bridge, like a walkway area on the wall or something. And he is just, you see this smirk on his face, this kind of barely smiling, but the glee in it. I mean, he still has a lot to do. Even if he gets all these things to come together, he still has his plan of how he's going to use this. But obviously, I mean, he wants this to be his army. He wants Eregion to fall. The only need he had for Eregion was to make the rings. Once those are done, he has no need for it. So he's just like a prolific, burning bridges behind him everywhere he goes. Once he uses you up, he has no need for you anymore. So he just moves on. And so next we see Adar. And we're just going to come back to what I talked about in the last video about how Galadriel just loves herself a toxic man. Because here we are with Adar and Galadriel. And this looks like a romantic dinner. They're at both sides of the table. It's very Beauty and the Beast, right? Having this dinner, and he's very soft-spoken and saying things to her she wants to hear, saying the things he knows will resonate with her because of what it feels like to be, I wouldn't even say specifically under Sauron's control at first when he's talking to her, but it's not only are you're getting the things you hope for, like he's leaving these seeds for you, but he also makes you feel important and valuable, and that also hooks you in as well. So when you realize who he is, it's like this huge disappointment, this huge abandonment, like huge thing that happens to you as well that you have to mourn, because you perceived yourself as important to him. You perceive this thing as something completely different. And I think both Adar and Galadriel have this lovesick thing for Sauron as well. As much as Adar says that he wants to destroy him and go after him, the more it feels like a couple who's broken up and got back together. Like, they'll talk all kinds behind your back and say all kinds of things, but then if you accept them back as that boyfriend or girlfriend, they're all very lovey-dovey and say very nice things to you. It just kind of gives that off to me a little bit. But I think it's an interesting manipulation tactic that he's using when he's talking to her. He's talking very softly, giving her things they could agree on, and slowly kind of amping up what he wants from her. Before he drops the hammer of like, this is worse than you think it is, and I'm not your friend, and you're my prisoner. Like, before all of that falls, he gets all the information he wants out of her and more, which this scene reminded me so much of, I think it's the first Avengers movie where we have Black Widow. And she's actually in prison. Someone has her tied up or whatever, and they have this whole fight moment, whatever, and that she tells him she got all the information out of him, that this is all her manipulation tactic to learn everything she needed to know. Galadriel was so vulnerable for this because she's so prideful. Galadriel, stop going for the toxic men. It's not going to work out for you. Okay, and then we go back to Numenor with Ar-Pharazôn holding Elendil at trial. So the son blamed Elendil for the death of the curly head guy. And so now he's on trial for this. And he accepts the judgment of the Valar, where they summoned that sea monster, sea worm, something like that. And I guess basically if it kills him, well, he was guilty. And if it doesn't, he was innocent. Which, okay, fine, yeah. I mean, I might take that deal too. I mean, this is a beast. This is a monster. Like, maybe you have a 50-50 shot. Maybe you don't. Maybe it's just going to kill you, and that's the end of you being on the show. But I did enjoy that it was something not so political. I mean, it kind of is, because I think at this point, Ar-Pharazôn is trying to streamline everything. So he wants to get rid of the old ways. But I think he wants to do it in a more progressive manner, because right now to him, the most important thing is for everybody to acknowledge that he's the king, to get the support from everybody and slowly weed out this older religion. Whereas his son did something that was, I think in his mind right now, an over-the-top aggressive thing that just hurt him. It didn't solidify him being the ruler. So I find it really interesting that this scene where we have Elendil just about to go into the water, and then the queen shows up and she actually takes his place. Now, if we go back a little bit, between when he was on trial and before they went to the water, she actually came to him in his prison cell to tell him, like, you need to abandon going against Ar-Pharazôn and be like the captain, be in part of what's going on, because they need good men like you, need to be there still. I'm not even going to talk that much about the daughter in this scene, because I find her so annoying and so, like, just cold-hearted a bit. Like, you could just turn on your dad like that and turn on your family like that. So I don't really care for her as a character. I didn't even really want to mention her, but I did think it was important to know that the queen did come and visit him. And when they're down at the water, she takes his place. And honestly, when this happened, I just thought, this is one of those things where, like, this moral character decides to just sacrifice himself, and then we as audience just have to deal with that happening and losing this great character. But I was so pleasantly surprised, spoiler, that the beast didn't kill her, and that she showed up on shore again, and that's how she was claimed that she was innocent. And now this creates such a huge problem with Ar-Pharazôn of what is he going to do about this? Because he was just wanting to do things to solidify his own king. And now that he's done this is going to give more courage to the faithful. This is going to cause a wider gap in the division of people than what he wanted. Which I wonder how much of what Ar-Pharazôn is doing is influenced by Sauron at this point, or isn't. Because it seems like he needed the failure to push him towards using the Palantir, to have him make bad decisions. He needed to have some important losses happen to push him over the edge. And then we're going to Tom and the Stranger. So Tom is continuing to be like Obi-Wan or some type of mystic, like, trainer or someone pushing you into the fight. So we're still seeing him have this position within the show. Kind of get the portrayal of him being like, you know, why would you consider your friends? Why would you do these other things when you have destiny, when you have something bigger than just someone who lives a short life or affects such a short amount of the world, when you have such a grander, bigger thing? But then on the other hand, it just feels a little much like, does he really care this much? How much of what he's saying actually true? Like, are these all tests for the Stranger? Because I feel like when Tom's saying, oh yeah, that he did this same process with the Dark Wizard, is this his way of seeing, like, what direction he's going to go? Because I just felt at one point Tom doesn't have really that big of a part to play, because the Dark Wizard continued to be the Dark Wizard, right? And the Stranger will continue to be the Stranger if he goes good or bad. Which I think in the show he's just going to end up going good, because Dark Wizard's like bad wizard, good wizard. It feels very Harry Potter to me a little bit, where it's just those general, like, we need a good and a bad of the, like, mystic spiritual kind of position that the wizards would hold. But it feels like a lot of setup, a lot of questioning him, a lot of maybe pushing him to do something that might feel like he's going against a moral thing or something. So I'm really confused about this, what's really happening. I had to watch it a couple times and realize that, oh, this part was just for him to get his staff. And he put so much emphasis on the staff determining what type of wizard you would be. Whereas my interpretation of the staff was that it was just a way to filter or harness the actual power. Like, that's why things would blow up and things would be out of control, because you need something to, like, focus it or filter it. Not that staff determines who you are. So that's why I feel like with Tom, it's like, is he saying half truths? Is he kind of messing with them? Is actually what's happening here? But I could be wrong. Please comment and let me know on this video as well. I am curious of what you have to say, if you agree or don't agree with me, or if you have a different take than I have. And so from this, they switched to the Hobbit scene. honestly, there's not much to really talk about here. I'm not really invested in the stewards. Like, I don't know them. They've only been on screen a little bit. There's nothing compelling about them. They're throwing in a love story with one of the stewards and the friend of Dory. It's great, I guess. I don't know. It's not that interesting. It doesn't set up any stakes for me. It doesn't make me feel anything towards them. It just feels like it slows the story down, and I just want to get back to the action. Let's get back to Eregion. Let's get back to even Numenor. Let's get back to other things going on with Adar. Like, let's go somewhere else, because it just feels kind of boring. When Anatar goes to the dwarfs to try and get more mithril, because when the villain is so easy to give up on something and doesn't challenge something, that says something. Like, he's asking for mithril. The king basically denies it because he wants more from him. He wants him to pay a higher price for it. And he's just like, okay. You know? We get a little flicker of fire with a Balrog. We get a little bit of him looking around very cunningly. And there's not really that much to the scene. I think he's trying to manipulate Durin the Younger to not be so averse to him. But I don't think he has much to really do that with him. But he does try. But I feel like he just leaves too easily. He doesn't try hard enough. And for someone who's such a good manipulator and able to see what motivates people and what people desire, he left so quickly. I just feel like this is in every like Scooby-Doo episode or something like that, or it's like the bad guy gives up way too easily, and it's because you haven't solved it. You haven't figured out the real thing going on here. So, all right, so after Sauron leaves, we have this little moment where Durin is confronting the king. It's becoming more and more of a thing for him, like how bad this ring is. He does try to grab his father's hand and take it off, and he gets thrown across the room. Kind of this emotional moment between Disa and Durin the Younger, where she's saying basically that they should go against the king, and he has this emotional breakdown where it's still his father and he doesn't want to do these things, but he doesn't like what he's doing. Oh, probably one of my funny lines with Disa and Durin the Younger is when they're confronting the main, like the top crafter dwarf guy. I really don't remember any of these names. And she does her stone singing, and he says to her, like, always says, "Is that supposed to scare us off?" I thought that was hilarious. And then there was kind of this pause, and I think in the joke being played, and then all of a sudden all these bats come down and scare them off. But like I said, I like seeing more of the magic, more of the fantasy part of this. And I really, really like this part. And it just showed the reach that Sauron has of what he can do, where how much he was able to manipulate what the crafter elf saw. It wasn't just a small area. It was like his whole workshop. It was when he left the building. Everything he could see. That's how much the control he had on his mind. That everything just seemed so, everything was peaceful and ideal and quiet so that he could work. When in reality, there was, you know, a battle on the horizon. Things are being destroyed. This is not a peaceful thing. And also it showed to me like how truly evil Sauron is, where he could see in the crafter elf's mind what peace looked like. But he found joy in it being sieged, in it being taken down, and death and all this stuff. Like, he knows, and I don't think I think this scene is great for that. Like, this really opened my eye into how evil he is. That when he said peace, he never means peace. Like, which I think is really obvious, but I think this really depicted it very well. I will end on that note, on the Scooby-Doo note. So these are my thoughts on episode 6. Overall, I did enjoy it. There were some things that just fell a little flat for me, and I have lots of questions. So next time you guys see me, I will be recapping episode 7. But if you did like this video, please subscribe to the channel and like it as well. Thank you for watching. Bye.